Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout of thanks and appreciation first and foremost to new patron, Felis Mengus, Level Playing Poem, Smith Tools and Purchase, Vitali Z, Colton James, BG, Effie Patriot, Thomas van der Zander, Measured Flat, Chris Wouters, Mia in the Shire, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, The Name's Burley, Jason Hornsby, JMels24, U Unimento, Iron26, Endless, Retro Bill, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Hairy Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Rob W, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Chow Yun Cat, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. With that, I'll hand across to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Trying to talk to you about the nature of Earth. And I can't even get them to watch the sun, the moon, and just take notice of it and see what the cycles of it are. And I know it's not measurements, but it's certainly observation. And it to me it helps open up a whole can of worms that we don't know what's going on. We don't know the half of it. And if we just watch what the sun does and what the moon does, that would certainly help, I would think, get people thinking.
Yeah, but that's why they've got calendars that don't tie up with the sun and moon. The months don't match the moon cycles. You know, the 24-hour is a fixed time period that doesn't match the sun. It's averaged. So people consider it unnecessary to watch the luminaries because it's already been figured out for them. To the point where I'll stand up the road, I have done, watching Venus all through till, midday, when it's at my zenith above me, breaking through the clouds. Now, on whatever it's called, the star, I can't remember what the piece of software I was using at the time, but whatever the app I was using to tell you when the star's supposed to disappear would suggest that it would disappear at 6 a.m. It's the morning star, right? And it doesn't. It stays visible all the way through till midday, when, for me at least, it was only through the clouds breaking that I could see it, but I still managed to see it until the clouds completely covered it. But it was at my zenith. In other words, you could still see that star in the day. Now, that's not what it's logged as doing. Now, when I'm doing it, I'm around people who are looking at me like I'm nuts, because I'm at the top of the hill and there's a supermarket there. And I'm just in the car park, looking up, like directly above my head, to keep my eye on the same spot of the sky, so as the clouds move over that spot and then break, I can see if that star's still there or not. Right up until I couldn't. Same with things like Aurora Borealis, the moon, anything that I'm looking at that has always held a fascination for me. I owned a telescope until doing this. Ironically, I got rid of it when starting flat Earth debate and having kids. But that was through a lack of space, as in room in my apartment. But the general idea of looking and being interested in it has always been there with me. And when you try and sort of translate it or put that across to somebody else, they're just not interested. They don't want to, as you put it, look at the stars, look at the moon, keep an eye on where it is. And I tell my kids to, like, where's the sun now? We're in winter. What's the sun doing? Where's it coming up? Where's it going down? How high does it go? And they're being told to keep an eye on these things and pay attention to them. By me.
Yeah, and I don't know. I wonder if it got discouraged once astrology was deemed witchcraft by the church.
Yes.
Ironically, the Jesuits in the Vatican and the Rome have been the forefront of studying the stars, but they don't. They changed it from astrology, from knowing well, the Bible calls it the times and the signs in the sky. God created the stars, the sun and moon for signs and for navigation.
Times and seasons also.
Say again?
Times and seasons.
Seasons, yeah. And that, that doesn't mean just, spring, fall, winter, summer. Seasons.
And
It's this sign of the times, and it took me a little bit to get the idea that that astrology, or the studying of the stars and the seasons and the times, isn't the bad thing. It's the it's what we're supposed to do when we look in the heavens. I can't even get people to just measure an elevation angle to Polaris. That has been my not hill to die on, but my main talking point. How do you know the Earth's flat? Well, I can measure my latitude from my backyard. And if you do that, one, you know where you're at. Two, you know that you have to measure it flat. You know where you're at, yeah, measure it flat. And people won't even do that are arguing with me that the Earth's still a ball.
Yeah, it's a very simple modus ponens argument. If Earth is flat, we will measure it flat. Earth is flat because we measure it flat.
You just don't know your logic. Actually, on a couple threads the other day, that's the latest mantra. It's like, it only works on a sphere Earth. We measured this, or we get an elevation angle to the stars or whatever, because it's a sphere. And I try to come back with like, well, how do you how do you do that? Well, it's just they figured it out. It's getting intense out there in the Facebook world.
For you, you'll be met with anger because you're pointing out how Earth is actually measured for everyone always, and there's no debate anymore when you pipe up in those streams, right?
Their own debate they have is that you don't know what you're talking about, and they figured it out, and you don't know physics.
That's not what figuring out is. Figuring is maths.
Right. It's maths, not measurements.
Maths are measurements. Measurements are maths. So if you say you're doing physics, then you're studying the cause of a natural phenomena. That's physics, the study of the physical and natural world through systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis, aka physics. The scientific method, natural science, that's physics. Maths is measuring stuff. So measuring your elevation angle off a flat plane to give you your Polaris measurement and ultimately latitude, that's maths. So when they say they've figured it out, what they've measured it, Yeah, that's what they mean. But they've measured it for you. That's what I said earlier. That's where I piped up. They've already done it for you. That's why people don't want to look up. That's what I boiled it down to about 6-7 years ago. As simple as that. People don't want to look up. The simple act of cricking your head a few degrees with respect to a plane, upwards with respect to a plane, both flat earth proofs, would require that you look, observe, and take note. And ultimately, when somebody does crick their head, they quickly realise how ignorant they are.
And then they get pissed off that you pointed it out to them.
Yes, precisely. That's where I was going next. Exactly. Then you're the bad guy because you've made them feel stupid.
Yeah, I've even gone on to posts for Jason Lyle and what's the other one? Reasons to Believe with Hugh Ross. And both of them are arguing against evolution, but also they're both on opposite sides of the quote unquote age of the earth stuff. And I basically just comment that if you can see a star, if you can see a light in the sky, that means that the light in the sky is large enough and close enough to see. That's it. You know, that's basically telling an astronomer that, you know, you measure Earth flat. You look in the sky, you see the sun and the moon. They're the same size. If you can see a star, that means that light, that source of that light, is close enough and bright enough to see. The inverse square law of light means that if you see a light, it's close enough and big enough to see.
Maybe.
That's it.
Maybe.
And
terrestrially, yeah. You can show that, demonstrate it, prove it out, and measure it, and all the rest of the good stuff. Not so much with the celestial lights in the sky. You can't necessarily prove what you've just said, unfortunately, Surf Daddy. Sorry.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with that.
Well, if you can see it, obviously it's close enough, and or bright enough to see. What that does is that basically all I'm doing is challenging the whole idea of light years when they talk about distances and stuff.
Yeah, but your phraseology would require you to justify your phraseology. When you say close enough, you've pinned your... Go on, Neil.
No, I'm just saying correct.
I say it first. You've pinned your mantra to something that would have a measurement attached, so therefore you've got to justify that measurement. If they turn around and say, well, how close is close enough? You've got to then justify that because of your phraseology.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
We're at the stage where it's not educating people on knowing what to look at or how to talk. It's knowing what not to say, to not leave yourself in a position where you've got to justify something that you can't necessarily back. And you don't need to. What you said before that was perfectly sufficient. We measure it flat. If we can see it and measure it and it's a navigation star, we can utilise a flat plane of reference to not die. That's all true. And demonstratable, utilisable, has produced maps and models for the globers to believe in over the course of the years that they've been utilising flat Earth elevation angles to navigation stars. So you can demonstrate that.
True. Yes. When they're discussing the concepts that involve, and they don't actually say it. No one says light years a lot. They just assume, like they assume the globe, right?
No, they don't.
Assume the stars infinitely distant.
That's not, well, that's not light years then, is it? So there you go. So you've immediately pulled yourself into their contradiction in their own paradigm. If you're working from the celestial plane or the equatorial plane, then your measurements are going to be, for heliocentrists, infinite when you talk about the distance to the stars, because they're just placed on a glorified protractor. Can you mute stuff? That you're causing horrendous feedback. I'm having to close the line. Yeah, so your distance becomes infinite if you're working from a plane of reference through a protractor globe to the celestial sphere or hemisphere. It would have to be. You can only see half. You can only see from 0 to 180. But then you've got an infinite heliocentric distance that they claim. Well, when you scale it through Kepler and Huygens, mathematically, you can give a scaled value to each of the stars in light years, which is a distance, but not if you're going to navigate with them. They don't have a distance, they acknowledge it. We don't have a distance, which is what I'm pulling you up on. I'm saying, no, too close, too far, far enough, close enough, inverse square law, all very sticky wickets for us if you start asserting them.
Yeah, because then you're asserting that you have a distance.
Yeah, that's why I stopped using the inverse square law a couple of years ago. I had a buddy of mine, we were talking about that on the phone. And, I don't even remember what the formula is, but the inverse square law works for if you're looking at a street lamp or something and the brightness of it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the
We were
inverse
talking
square
about
law.
that.
The inverse square law is great.
Right.
Until you apply it to the
But then
stars.
he goes, okay, so what is the star? And then he asked me that, and I had no way of answering it.
Well, you say you don't know.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with saying you don't know. Having a bit of humility
Sure.
and being humble in regards to what you don't know is just as critical, because you end up coming over like bloody Dave Weiss or someone. If you just say, well, I think it's, I've got a feeling it's, I suggest it would be. Like, if you don't know, just say, I don't know. What's the moon? I did it in my Vice interview. 8, 9 years ago? What's the moon? I don't know. What's the sun? I don't know. I just don't know.
And you're telling the truth when you say that.
Do you? What is it? Do you know? Tell me if you do.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be telling the
they're
truth.
angels.
No, it's not rhetorical, Neil.
Neil.
No, it wasn't rhetorical. I'm saying, do you know what the sun is?
No, I have no
No, but I
idea.
do.
And I'm telling the truth.
Right. And I'm telling the truth when I say they appear to be the same size.
Yes, now you've got it
That's
right.
all I-
See, your phraseology is
Yeah.
perfect now. They appear, that is to say, what we see of them, and angular size is an apparent description. So when you say they appear, accurately, you automatically appeal to their apparent size. Perfect phraseology. They appear the same size. Yeah, they do. No one's going to disagree with you on that one.
My only point with the idea that if we see a light, it's close enough and bright enough that we can see it. If we see it, we can see it.
There
Right?
you go again. You said close enough. How do you know? Remember, these are celestial, not terrestrial, like Nathan said. It's not a street light.
If you're under a street light and you go up in height, does it get a bit brighter and a bit closer, Surf Daddy?
I got my dog here barking, but yes, yeah.
And if you go a bit higher to the stars in altitude off a flat plane, measured flat, do the stars get brighter and do you get closer to them?
Nope.
No, is the answer. No, they don't change at all. Not only do they not change in brightness, the angle remains the same, which defies terrestrial behaviour of light. It's the complete opposite. You would expect the angle to decrease and increase as you raise and lower in altitude. That's what happens with every other light. You increase your altitude and decrease your angle between you and it with respect to a plane of reference you're measuring the angle with. The stars don't do that, though. So you can't ascribe these things to them because they're not behaving like a terrestrial light behaves. They're not terrestrial lights. Now, the fact that they do that means we can navigate with them. The fact that we can get a consistent angle to them at all altitudes makes them useful for navigation. If they didn't do that, they wouldn't be useful. So we can only save our life at sea because they don't behave like a terrestrial light. Therefore, you can't ascribe distance. There's a reason. Why wouldn't heliocentrists just say, well, yeah, Kepler-Huygens, yeah, we know exactly how far they are, because it all falls apart the minute you raise an altitude and they don't change. So they say, oh, yeah, well, when we're doing it in that way and utilising elevation angles, mapping the world from within a ball on the equatorial plane, then they're infinitely distant. It's like, well, why the contradiction? Why both infinitely distant sun and 93 million mile sun? Why do you want it both ways? Because you can't have it both ways. Well, which one's true? Well, the answer is you don't know. Infinite means nothing. It's just a concept. It's just a get out of jail free card when they've already ascribed the distance. But you don't have to do that. Who's pressuring you to do it? It works to our opponent's advantage if you do.
Yeah, because then you have to come up with answers.
Yep. Then you're not focusing on how Earth gets measured flat. You're focusing on justification for how far it is and the inverse square law, like Bob Nodell fell into the trap of.
Yeah, that's exactly why I stopped trying to use that as an argument. The way you just said it was perfect. Because if you observe a street light and then you climb up on top of a ladder and get closer, the light gets brighter. But yeah, that doesn't happen with the stuff in the sky at all. Like you get in
They don't obey our
a jumbo
geometry.
jet, the moon's not going to get brighter, huh?
Because they don't obey our geometry. We had that big argument with Witz at that time.
Right.
Totally different.
Hey, Brian.
Well, not that it doesn't obey the geometry, it just doesn't obey the inverse square law because the closer you get to it, it doesn't change.
Yeah, it doesn't change its, what would you call it, lumen value or whatever you want to use as a scale for brightness. But it also doesn't alter in terms of its angle.
Well, yeah, so I guess Neil was right too. Yeah.
But thank God it doesn't, in the most sincere way. Thank you, Lord, for making the stars and heavens the way they are so that we can utilise this diagrammatical example on screen. Because as I raise this plane in this diagram, nothing changes. Notice how it's not noted, and you can't see it, but for my audience's benefit. On this diagram, there's no mention of requirement for a height measurement. It's just north, south, east and west on a plane. Now, does that matter if it's a plane at 100 feet, 1,000 feet, 20,000 feet, or on the surface? Nope, doesn't make any difference. So it works at all altitudes. Thank God. Many lives have been saved. Many maps have been made as a result of the zenith position remaining above a certain part of land and you being able to calculate that zenith distance to that star at its GP with an angle at all altitudes. But I don't even need that. Why would I need that? How do we measure an elevation angle? Once you establish what an elevation angle is and how you measure it, I don't need to explain that the stars don't change their angular size or their angular measurement from varying heights. Therefore, you can achieve the fix with several overlapping areas of equal altitude so that you don't die at sea. All of that is surplus to my, as a flat earther, requirements. So in the comments, we get people saying, you haven't explained why the sun is above the horizon for 24 hours in Antarctica. Like, I don't need to. Once you understand how Earth is being measured with that sun above the horizontal with an angle, then you understand that you're measuring the horizontal as the surface level that gives you an altitude angle. That's it. What's that? But why is it there? I don't know. Very good question. Go and find out. But Earth's measured flat, right? You understand that? Well, you're just brushing past the sun, is what you get as a response. In other words, what, only your straw man? Not the acknowledgement of the flat Earth angle that proves the point. What's Earth? Well, flat. Well, how'd you know? Because that's how it's measured by everyone always. Yeah, but why is the sun about? I don't care. That's the answer. I don't care.
Well, actually,
Go on, Brian.
just saying, Nathan, that what they're actually asking is, how come you can't give me all the details of the mysteries of what I think the universe is? It's like, I can't tell you what the sun is or how it does what it does. I have no idea. No one does. It's just they're under the impression that they have a story, and they're not even paying attention to what they have as a story, nothing else. And if what they had was so concrete, people like us wouldn't be able to challenge it. You know what I mean? But they want you to come up with some crazy story so they can try and debunk it. It's like debunking a story doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean like it's like Wickets we would always say like that basically just because I debunk something doesn't mean I have to replace it with something else. Right? I can't remember how he puts it. But it's the truth thing, right? It's like you're supposed to tell them how the sun is doing what it's doing when you don't know what the sun is, just to appease them and give them a story that they can attack, just like you can attack the story they have. Why would you do that? You know what I mean? It makes no sense. You know, it's like give me your advantage, so I won't be at a disadvantage with my stupid story. I won't give you any advantage. You don't deserve it.
Yeah, you got some people that say, well, if you can't explain it, then, heliocentrism does explain it, and I'm just going to stay here.
Yeah, it's just like here. Well, stay there then, you dope.
That's my attitude. I completely agree. Well, then stay there. You want to be on a ball because you've got all the answers. You think you've got all the answers. Well, okay. Be my guest. I don't care. You're coming to me because there's a doubt. But you don't want to relinquish your system that you currently lent into for so many years until all aspects of that bullshit system are replaced. So, Whitsitt, the terms that you were looking for that Whitsitt uses is falsification is independent of replacement.
And that rhymes.
Yes.
In other words, I don't have to prove something other than what you have suggested is true isn't true. If I can falsify what you have given me as a just so story, it doesn't mean that I have to replace the just so story. Why is the grass green? Well, the story I'm getting from this third party is that it's green because all of the green animals come along and eat and shit and piss on it. Therefore, it grows green. All right, so if I can demonstrate that it's not caused by the animals that graze on the grass, well, why is it green? I don't have to give you an answer to that. I just have to show that you're wrong, and then I prove that you're wrong. But beyond me showing that you're wrong, I'm not here to tell you why the grass is green. I don't have to do that.
These people, just on the joke, or just off the back of what Neil was saying a minute ago about well, I'll stay here on my board then. It's like, this runs true. This runs directly through the whole of the heliocentrists that we deal with. They think that we're concerned about them and that their opinion matters and that they are somehow, they have this kind of like, this idea that they're important. It's like, you're not important to anyone anywhere. You're completely irrelevant. Do you know what I mean? If you talk about the majority of them, just completely irrelevant. So if you tell me, well, if you can't tell me what the sun is and how it does what it does, then I'll just stay on my globe. Like, who cares what you're going to do? You don't matter. They have this idea in their head that they somehow matter. You don't. You're just a brainwashed idiot. Do whatever you like. Yeah. Nobody cares.
Will you being on a ball and remaining on a ball because I haven't explained what the sun is change how we measure the sun? Like Fugly Dave McKeegan measuring it for 24 hours in Antarctica. I keep getting that wrong. But for the fact that Dave McKeegan was outsmarted by his own tripod, he would have measured Earth flat for 24 hours. What's that? I don't know what the sun is. Okay, does that change that Dave McKeegan measured Earth flat for 24 hours? I keep doing it. But for the fact he couldn't manage his own tripod, he would have measured it flat for 24 hours. He didn't.
Yeah, but like, at least with Dave McKeegan, he is somebody, right? He's somebody. He's online. He's got a following. He's someone, right? You could say, right? Most of these people, they think that they should have the same importance to you as if you were speaking with Brian. I'm going to use Brian Cox because he's the most famous out of them all, right? Or Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's like, I'm sorry, but I don't care. I don't care if you are going to stay on your globe because I won't tell you what the sun is. I don't care what you're going to do. You're irrelevant. I don't know what it is with them, but they have this idea in their head that they are important. All of them. Do you know what I mean? That their opinion matters, and it doesn't matter. You don't matter at all. I don't care what you do. You know, well, I guess I'll stay on the globe then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they have all the answers, Brian. And you don't have any answers, so they're giving me
The globe
answers.
has all the answers.
Yeah,
Domino's Pizza,
so
can I
I'm
help
gonna
you?
stay here.
They're not presenting any information. They're actually presenting other people's information, not their own information. So it's not even an opinion, is it?
No, it's a regurgitation.
Yeah, so that's not an opinion, is it?
And an explanation isn't an answer either. I mean, it's just an explanation to something.
Exactly.
Depends.
son
That's
said
not a
that
good
to me.
word. It depends on what you mean by explanation. If you're talking about a just so story, like the grass that I gave as an example earlier, then no, that's just a just so story. But an explanation that's been validated, like through the scientific method, then no, that does have credence, very much so. If it's empirical, then yeah, your explanation's wonderful and will undoubtedly help humanity.
Yeah, but I mean, the vast majority of the explanations they have are impossible to validate scientifically.
Yes, precisely. Well put.
That's why I get irritated with Witsit. Like, he has to, like, his whole electrostatics argument is just gravity replacement, just with a different name. But
Yeah, it
there's
makes
no
him seem
need to
very
do
chilly,
that.
eh? When they start replacing gravity with Ethereum concepts, you're like, that's just shilly. Like, what, you want to usher in a new version of a nonsensical non-force that you can think of as a force? Why? There's no need. We haven't got a downward vector always in effect. There's no need to explain it with something else if it doesn't exist. That's why we ask any scientific evidence of gravity. First place you need to start is showing a natural phenomena. That's where Witsit and formerly Bob Nodell before he died would fail on their arse immediately. Like, well, what's the natural phenomena you're studying? Well, things go down. Looks up at clouds. No, is the answer. No, you don't have a phenomena then.
Yeah, they feel like they have to replace the downward vector that we don't have.
Yeah, me, I go downward vector. Well, Earth's flat then. Perpendicular to a plane of reference, down. The fact that you can describe this at all, mathematically incorrectly, because it's not always in effect, is irrelevant when you need a flat Earth to describe it. I'd rather take it to what the argument actually entails when we are flat earthers, not Ethereans. That's why we drew the distinction between us and them. Us being the people who talk about Earth being measured flat, them being the bullshitters who make stuff up to replace gravity, when there's no need. There's no phenomena observed.
Well, the phenomena is down.
That's not a phenomenon.
What do you mean? I just dropped my coffee cup and it went down.
That's synthetic. You dropping something is synthetic. But for everything that goes down, you can say, well, here's 5 things that go up. Just name off a few gases. They all come from ground level. There aren't any exceptions. You've only got to look at the clouds to know that I'm not making that up. And when they say, well, that's because things have gone down, you're like, no. The gases are all, without exception, moving randomly in all directions. And if you describe their origin, which we know, it's from the ground. So they're going up, ultimately going up. Because that's where they've started from and where they end up. If you're talking about clouds, well, they start from the ground, puddles and water and the sea, and then it goes up. But it's not because of something else coming down. There aren't any gas factories in the sky.
Yeah, that's a new big thing now. Everybody's talking about how there's less on Mount Everest again. You know, these things recycle. Why is there less on Mount Everest? And when you go higher, there's less gas molecules. Tell me that, flat earther.
You don't need to give this as an explanation. So what I would do in modern, if you want to call it debate, it isn't, is ask, so to describe this altitude, we'd have to measure where these gases that you're appealing to are. How are we going to do that first? How do we establish the elevation? Oh, we first must measure Earth flat for the elevation of these gases in this description. So we must concede before we go any further with you appealing to me as your new guru that to describe this in any way, shape or form, Earth will be measured flat to do it. Altitude for the gases in this instance. Height of Everest in this instance. So we're going to be measuring Earth flat before we do anything. Again, so we're immediately at the stage before we've done a thing where they, asking you about why it gets thinner as gas dissipation occurs within containment, to be pressurized from a measurement that requires Earth be a flat plane to give it you. So we just need you to be on your knees acknowledging that Earth is flat before we go any further describing this gas behaviour. At which point they can either say, no, I would rather forego the description of the height of the gases. Well, then you don't have a question to ask. Oh, well, okay, fine, we measure them from a flat plane from sea level. Well, then why are we having this conversation? Earth's flat.
No, their new thing now, Nathan, is their new thing now, Brian. Listen to this. Their new thing now is no, up is relative to where you are. So when I speak of elevation, if I'm on this side of the ball, it's up to me. I mean, this is retarded.
That's not new, Neil. That's not new.
I know, but it's coming around again.
So can I classify down? Down would be if I drop something and it goes down and hits the ground, and then I measure that, then I move half a mile down the road, drop it. Those two drops should be parallel, yeah?
Yes, well, you've immediately hit the right word. Parallel, right? An axiom.
Well, otherwise,
not in their paradigm.
Exactly. So they have to defy
divergence.
But divergence. So we have parallel. That's an axiom. We don't like that because it doesn't work on a ball when you describe things going in towards the centre of Earth. No, we can measure things going down, and they're not relative to a ball because a ball doesn't give you perpendicularity, and it doesn't give you parallel planes.
But this thing about them and they're dropping, them talking about how the height of something above one point and the height of something above another point, when they go to describe that, they're going to describe it by saying they are both the same from the points below them. The points below them are the same distance at sea from sea, what they would call curved sea level nonsense.
Yeah.
From the center of the globe, right? So what they don't understand is that they're invoking the globe, and they completely forget that the two heights above the 2 points, let's just say above sea level, right? Those two heights can't be known unless they have a shared baseline, right? That's right. They can't now. A curved surface is not a shared baseline, as in you can't measure the height of something in relation to something else, right, off a curved surface, because there's a drop between any 2 points on a curved surface. There's a drop, and a sphere is completely curved, right? So you can't measure the height of one in comparison to the other. You need that shared horizontal mean sea level baseline.
Not only that, so Brian's covered one aspect of it. The other is the distance itself between the 2 points that you're measuring, that you require a shared baseline to measure the heights with respect to each other from a shared horizontal plane of reference. But the distance between the 2 points is also horizontal and linear. So you need a shared baseline for the distance between them and the heights. And axiomatically, to acquire them and measure them, which we do, the axiom of parallel must and does hold true. So they can say, well, over there it's in. No, because if you're going to measure it, it needs to be parallel for you to acquire the height. And if you're going to have a distance between the 2 points, it will be horizontal and linear. So they can defy the axioms all they like.
Well, the thing is that it's implied, right, by the fact that you require a shared baseline, a two-dimensional baseline. You see, what is height or drop, right, above a surface? It's a third dimension. If you're talking about a surface plane, you're talking about an XY. So the Z is the right height above or drop below that XY plane.
Precisely.
Right? Yeah. So you can't like, you don't even like, you shouldn't even have to even talk about the distance between being a straight horizontal, because it's implied by the fact that the baseline is two-dimensional.
Well put.
If it's
it's axiomatically tied to the fact when you measure the altitude. In other words, adding it in just for the distance measurement if you were to measure the distance. I'm automatically assuming we're going to be doing trig, which you might not necessarily be doing. But you're correct. It isn't necessarily to point it out. It's axiomatically tied to elevation, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, they don't measure things like mountains, right, at a distance and between each other with tape measures. Do you know what I mean? As in, they don't do it that way. They have to be able to take the law, what would be one of the laws of perspective, which is angular size, right? They have to be able to take that and work with the distance. So they'll measure a straight line distance between where the person with the theodolite is. They'll know the straight line distance between the theodolite and the mountain. And they also know the elevation of the point the theodolite sits on above mean sea level. And that's why they can then very, very closely, or maybe exactly, determine the height of the mountain. Because they will subtract their own elevation. So if the tripod is, or the tripod of the theodolite is, that's like 2,000 feet above sea level, they will subtract that, right? And they will measure know the distance between their tripod and the mountain, and they will, via angular size over distance, they will be able to calculate that the angle they get will match a certain height, and they can add that onto the 2,000 feet because they were using parallel verticals and horizontal distances. That's what they do. And or they can do it between three mountains with an actual triangle. The point being is that for all these things, you require a two-dimensional baseline. Because a curved surface is three-dimensional. So that's a drop between any 2 points. If you like, we're not huge, we're very small. So if we're measuring between two distances and that distance there's a curve, that's a drop. So you can't use a curved surface or a sphere as a baseline for vertical, upward measurement. You can't do it.
And then they get into, well, what if we're on a hill? Well, then again, like Brian's already pointed out, you need the axiom to describe the hill with rise over run, because you need a plane of reference to describe how high or low the height of the hill or the depth of the valley is with respect to a plane.
Yeah, they can determine the height of a valley or the height of a hill and measure, let's say, something much higher in the distance from that point, right? Because it's a lot easier to measure a mountain, right, from a lower elevation, right, once you know the distance to the mountain and you're able to determine the elevation that you're on above sea level. Then you can use that horizontal distance to determine what the actual remaining vertical above that elevation height of the mountain is. You can do that. But you can't do that if the Earth is sphere, because not only did they have a curved surface, but then they have diverging zeniths. So no matter what you do, the angle will never match the actual height of the mountain, that you can never know, because you can't even know the height of the hill or valley you stand on or in. You can't know it. There's no way to know it because it's singular.
How do they have divergent zeniths when they don't have a 90? The zenith is a 90-degree elevation angle.
Yeah, they're see how mathematically they have it is off of a tangent at that point. So the zenith is from their it's from the center of their sphere, meeting a point on the surface. There's a tangent there, and the zenith is above that. So they have 90 degrees either side of the zenith, either side of that zenith, right to the tangent, but it means nothing.
Yeah, then it's not the surface.
But the main thing is that it's singular. It's like in a vacuum. Remember we talked about arguments in a vacuum. It can't be referenced to any other point to determine what actual height above that point it is. You can't do that because there's a drop between the next. If you want to reference it to some other point in the distance, you can't, because that is over a curved surface in their paradigm. Sure. So you can't determine what even one of the heights is, never mind both heights.
But I think what John's saying is it defies the description itself, the definition of what a zenith is. If you say, well, I've got reciprocating zenith angles, they're diverging. You're like, well, let's define what a zenith is. What, 90 degrees to your position or directly above you? Well, then 90 degrees perpendicular to the surface is what you must have for this to be defined as a zenith. That's what a zenith is. So if you say, well, they're diverging, well, then it's not a zenith anymore. It's like self-defeating.
Well,
But
even if you say that, you're saying that your plane of reference is diverging, not that the ground's curving.
See, why I use zenith, I understand that and I'm fully aware of that. If I'm speaking about reality, I'll say vertical. If I'm speaking about their paradigm, I'll say zenith, because I can't say vertical and refer to their paradigm. I can't do that. So because that's an orientation that doesn't exist in their paradigm. So to describe what I'm trying to describe, I need a word and that people will understand. But a word that doesn't directly employ, although technically it does employ vertical, I can't use vertical. I can either use up or zenith. And zenith is, if I'm going to try to describe. So the only way to do it is I have to use zenith. Even though John is correct, it is not correct. It's not correct in its actual form, but I have no other word to use. Otherwise, I'd be making up a word, and I don't want to make up words. You know what I mean?
In and out. That's all I got.
In and out. That's all I got.
But if I'm to describe how much out, let's say, how do I describe something geometric and use the terms in and out? If I'm trying to describe it to an audience or to somebody, I can't.
Yeah, what you're saying is your problem is to describe their false world that doesn't work with Earth measurements, you have no words to describe it. So therefore, you can only use their false descriptions that defy axioms when they say reciprocating zeniths. Now, John's saying, well, no, zenith's a definition. And if they're going to be deviating from one another, then it's not the zeniths that deviate, it's the plane of reference that each one is referencing that would be deviating. And that's precisely what they do. They create different tangent planes. But their apologies don't change the axiom. Now, you're saying you can't work around their false world that doesn't have axiomatic principles that can apply to measurement. Well, the answer is also the proof that we're not on a ball. You can't describe it, can you, Brian? You don't have any choice.
Yeah, there's nothing to describe it with. When I try to describe it with terms that describe reality or that are based on reality, they don't describe it because they're 180 degrees opposed to it. Do you know what I mean? But I have those. How do you describe it without using those words? Because they're the only words people understand. Because the terms that we require to describe it don't exist.
Or to put it another way, they need a flat Earth to describe their deviation from a plane of reference, and therefore they can't describe said deviation if they're on a ball. Well, how do we actually measure Earth is the ultimate crux of this discussion. Will we measure it with parallels, zeniths, and the axioms all hold true? They're axioms. Obviously, they have to defy them. Well, you can't defy an axiom. They're axioms.
Who's the guy that came up with they need a flat Earth more than we do?
That's
I wonder
John.
who that guy is.
Refracted.
Oh, that's right. It was John.
Exactly, that's where that goes to. You need a flat Earth more than we do. Oh, no, I can just describe a deviation from an axiom and say that we've got, non-parallel zeniths. No, you can't. You define the definition.
They must hijack real reality to describe their fantasy. That's what has to happen. And
don't use our stuff.
Yeah, they're using our stuff. But how do we describe it without using some of the terms that we use for reality?
Well, you sympathiser. You're asking me how you would sympathise for them and effectively put across their position, which is bunk and erroneous and very difficult to actually describe with principles that apply to the world that we measure, because they don't apply to the world that we measure.
Well, yeah, they don't. They don't. Their principles don't apply to how we measure. Not just the world. It's like how we measure because of the type, because of what the world is. There's particular ways we must measure that are used to measure processes and axioms that we use geometric axioms, and they just don't. I have no choice if I'm going to describe to an audience or to somebody how their paradigm geometrically fails without using some of. I have to hijack reality like they do to somehow describe it to someone. Literally, because there's no other way. As I said, I don't want to have to make up words.
Yeah, but it kind of puts you in a sticky wicket because it becomes your claim at the point that you stated as such.
Yes and no, because if I say zenith from a tangent to a sphere, right, I will somehow get away with that. But if I say vertical, I won't, because it's not in the orientation of vertical, no matter what. Even though technically all zeniths are. How would you describe it without using the terms we use now?
How would I make a erroneous claim? I wouldn't.
But I'm not making an erroneous claim. I'm describing how their position fails geometrically. That's the difference. I'm not making the claim. I'm pulling their claim apart and showing how it doesn't fit with reality. So I'm not making a claim.
But when you say zenith or a sphere,
well, they will describe 90 degrees from a tangent, right? They will describe it because the world is so brainwashed into thinking they're on the globe. They have actually bent, pardon the pun, geometric axioms to fit somewhat their so they can somewhat describe it. So if I'm trying to describe it to somebody, how do I describe it with words that don't exist? How do we like if I start using words that don't exist, I'm making up words, like no one's going to take me serious. Unfortunately, even though they're wrong to use those words, and I have to then incorrectly use some of them, like words like zenith, I'll forego vertical all day, every day, but zenith I have to use to describe. I have no choice. Because it looks worse if I start making up words. Do you know what I mean? What can you do? You're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, like they are.
I love hearing that come from someone else's mouth.
But geometrically, I am, or anyone is, if they're trying to describe what they're talking about. How do you describe their claim concerning heights above a surface and describe it, and while referring to their paradigm? How do you do it? You have two options. You either have to use some of the words that we use in reality, and you're using them incorrectly just to get the point across, because that's what the people are brainwashed into believing, or make up words and no one's going to take you serious. Like I could talk about how far out something is or in something is, and that is true, but people aren't going to listen to that, unfortunately. We can talk that way with each other and make a joke out of it because we understand the ridiculousness, the geometric ridiculousness of what they're claiming. So you end up, when you're trying to describe their position, you end up between the rock and the hard place, because you have no choice.
How are you?
I'm all right. Very tired. Other than that, I'm all right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to have you all. Where did we get up to yesterday in the housekeeping? I do want to do a complete run of them, and there must be some that we've missed out.
Gravity.
Well, let's not do gravity again, though. We've done it 2 days in a row. Let's do any evidence.
That's what you asked where we got there.
Yes. As in, which ones haven't we asked is what I kind of meant. And I'm going to start off with any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved surface. Very poignant, basically.
No, that's not even possible.
Well, just for the live audience, we've been discussing this in the pre-show, hence my starting with that question. Here's an elevation angle on screen for my audience, the live audience, not for Discord. It is a prerequisite flat Earth measurement. You can only get elevation, that's from the surface, angles, that's two straight lines meeting at a vertex, if Earth is flat. It's a prerequisite for the measurement.
Well, with a curved surface, you can only measure a dip angle to the curved surface. You can't measure an elevation from it.
No, well, you'd need a flat plane for that also, though, wouldn't you, to describe the deviation from the horizontal that you're calling the curve?
Yeah, but you could make a plane of reference. Let's just say you could do that within their power line and measure a dip to that curved surface, but you can't measure an elevation.
Correct. So you can get a dip angle measurement to a curved surface in the same way you could describe a horizontal tangential to a hill and then describe the dip angle to the base below your position that you measured from. But again, you're going to need a horizontal plane of reference to axiomatically describe a depression angle. There's no difference between depression angles and elevation angles in that regard.
Within their paradigm, I'm pretty sure it's where eye level and where surface level appears to meet the sky. That is the two planes of reference that they will pull their angle from.
Well, they can't. They don't have any of them. They must hijack them from reality, and then mathematically place their curved surface underneath the surface level at points below it. So as that stretches out, they place more and more points below it and further below it. But if it comes to measuring a dip angle on a spherical surface, you need to create a plane of reference, but that plane of reference won't be horizontal. So in reality, we require a horizontal plane of reference, because it's not whether we require it or not, it's either horizontal or it's not. We can't measure the dip or the elevation of anything in reality without that horizontal, because horizontal and vertical, we must adhere to, because they are the orientations that the world is laid out in. But if it comes to a sphere, I don't need it to be horizontal, but I do need a plane of reference made at my location and to measure a dip below that plane of reference to a curved surface. Now, that doesn't mean anything because it will do absolutely nothing for you. But the main question is, can you measure an elevation from that curved surface? And the answer is absolutely not.
Well, that's what we've got as the question from Wilco Valdez in the chat. So, ... an elevation angle cannot have a curved baseline, question mark. No.
Why would he think that it could?
I don't think he's implying it is. He's just saying...
No, he's being sarcastic.
I mean, these are just one of many. We've gone, I don't know, halfway through the housekeeping questions this week to elucidate each and every one of them requiring a flat plane of reference when they're asked. And there aren't any exceptions so far. Even the Molten Iron Core that I thought yesterday might not have one, it absolutely does. I can't remember who it was to credit. I think it might have been One Deck. But you're going to have to create the globe to have a self-perpetuating molten iron core within it, and to create the globe you need a flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle to either Polaris or, as was just discussed, although not named per se, Al-Biruni's violation of a surface level measurement to acquire the height of a mountain with trig, to then infer, as John pointed out, that the parallel eye level and surface level with dip between them has this said violation of the surface level measurement used to acquire the height of the mountain to derive radius.
Yeah, but that doesn't work because they don't have a surface level. So what our eye level within that power line. So the point being is that you can't, the dip between two planes of reference doesn't equate to a curved surface underneath. Do you understand what I mean?
No, it's violating.
It doesn't mean anything.
Well, it violates
it's not that it has no connection to it whatsoever. Because one of like you can make a plane of reference at the eye line, right? But you can't use a surface level then. You must, because there is no surface level on a sphere. You understand what I mean?
It's a contradiction in terms. Yes, you're right. We've both changed positions. So in the pre-show,
you can't use.
Exactly. You in the pre-show were in my shoes now, which is frustratingly trying to describe how I use the word violate, the base measurement of surface level for the height to then have a curved, what I'm calling violation. And you're saying, well, no, they can't have it at all. It doesn't work. It isn't sensible to describe something that requires flatness and parallel eye level, surface level, as John described, when you describe the curved surface level. The two aren't conducive with one another. Well, I'm struggling to put it into words and have therefore called it a violation. But in the pre-show, you're, attempting to try and describe how they have reciprocating zenith angles, when John's saying, no, that defies the principal definition of what a zenith is. But you struggle to put these actual Earth measurements onto a ball because they don't work anymore.
Well, geometrically, you have to violate geometric terms and axioms to even try and describe how their paradigm fails geometrically.
Exactly.
When compared to reality.
Yeah, we've literally switched sides. I was doing this to you in the pre-show. That's what I was saying to you.
Yeah, because you have no choice. It's like there's certain words you can't use. You can't use the word level. Like I could make a plane of reference at the eye line, but I can't call it eye level, right? Because level doesn't exist. Because level is horizontal. Level is in the orientation of horizontal. So I can't call it level. And there is no surface level because that's not level either. It's not horizontal and it's not even flat. Within that paradigm, it's going to be curved. So all you can do is make a plane of reference at the eye line or at the theodolite or whatever nonsense, and then measure a dip angle to the curved surface. But then you can't even, like this, something I wanted to add in a minute ago, but the conversation I went on. You can't then, once you've measured your dip angle, then measure an elevation above that. Because your elevation is, you can't add on the dip to your elevation to get an elevation of a curved surface. Right, because I know people out there, ballers, I think you can do that because you're dealing with diverging, and there I am, I'm back behind the rock now, with zeniths. Because you're dealing with divergent zeniths, that means that your attempt to add on a dip angle to what you'll so you can then create an elevation above that plane of reference means nothing because you're dealing with parallel lines then, whereas they have diverging lines. So it won't even, it can just never work. None of it can ever work. It's not workable geometrically. And it's also not describable. If you were to use actual geometric terms, it's not what they're claiming is not describable. If you're talking about heights and all the rest of it, you can. And levels.
Hey, Jin, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, great to hear the voices again because I've been looking in this server for the past couple of weeks. I haven't found anybody in here. I'm wondering what's happened. Have they abandoned the server? Okay, so it's great to hear your voices. I have got a pressing question, though, related to the Baltard's flat line and the in-flight telemetry data, in particular the pitch data. Okay, I was embroiled in a hot, heated discussion / slagging match where with some other guys on another server here who are trying to say that we are wrong about what the data is telling us. Okay, so I want to get, and I'm glad I've got the two of you here, so if you can go through me that when you are ready we can go through it. Okay,
it sounds like you've already summarized it. What the data's telling us is just what the data tells us. It's raw data from black boxes, but the problem that they have is that it doesn't comport with their sphere belief. Therefore they need to go to a filing cabinet and say, no, gyros track around the world. No, that violates what a gyro does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Right.
Jin, how do you have...
He hasn't asked his question yet.
Being made by a guy called...
We're there, Jin. You asked your question.
He's AI. You know AI, don't you? AI?
I have heard of such a thing.
Right. You've heard of... No, you've heard of the character AI from the Flat Earth community. Come on.
AI Overlord.
Yeah, AI Overlord. He's a member of this server. He comes in here sometimes.
Yes.
Right.
Go on, James.
Right. He seems to. Right. He's under the impression that when we look at the graph, the pitch angle, we are misinterpreting that. It's not telling us, not showing us that the plane is flying.
I just covered this.
Horizontal.
I've got to stop you. Just let me stop you again.
Yeah,
There's no interpretation.
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
It's just measurement data, isn't it? So when they say we're misinterpreting it, so what you're saying is it requires interpretation. It's raw data.
What can I? Sorry, guys. What was Jin's? Can he? I didn't.
I'm trying to answer it one day.
If you can let me just get out what was being put across by the other side, and then one deck would understand fully. Sorry about that one deck. I'll say it again. Basically what the AI and others, Globers as well, were trying to say about me being wrong about what I'm saying. This graph shows. I said it shows us that the aeroplane is flying horizontally for a duration of time. You will notice that when it took off, it showed the trajectory of the plane taking off, right? So you know that the plane was climbing up to altitude. When it got to altitude, it leveled off. It flew level for a period of time. And then when it came to land, maybe 30, 40 miles from the airport destination, it starts to step down, decline. And that's what you show. So it's showing the trajectory. Right, and that proves that aeroplanes don't take a curved trajectory. That was my argument.
Yeah, and if they did,
that's not what the graph tells us.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah,
go ahead.
For a start, the person you're referencing, AI Overlord, he has been attacking the pitch data, right? And what he's calling the pitch data argument. It's not an argument, is it? There's no argument. The data shows what it shows. Right, he's been trying to attack that from day one, and the reason is because he has a personal issue with me. Right now, he was corrected on this by me and by Quantum Eraser, and I think a third time, I think it was at least 2 if not 3 times, and he conceded. But in the background, even after he conceded, in the background, he was trying to tell Flatsy and other people how this doesn't work, even after being corrected on it. So you can't trust that, and he's telling you or arguing with you because he has a personal problem with me, and he's attacking it because he hates me, and that's what that's about.
Yeah.
And he wants to.
I did detect that.
Wants. Yeah. He like.
Yeah.
Jim, but let's go through it geometrically. How do you have pitch on a sphere? That's step one. What's pitch in relation to? Horizontal, yeah. Your pitch is above is how much above or below horizontal. That's your pitch. Horizontal is a constant orientation. It's an orientation that cannot exist on a sphere, right? So geometrically, any claims outside of what the data actually shows, right, concerning a sphere, fail immediately geometrically because you don't have the orientations of horizontal or vertical. You don't have pitch, right? None of that works for them. But even if they want to try and argue, right, stupidity, right? Ask them about the top of the sense. Because when the plane, you see, what they have to claim, Jim, is that the horizontal is changing its own orientation in relation to itself. That's what they're actually claiming. Now, that makes no sense whatsoever. Right?
It makes no sense at all. Exactly.
Exactly. But when the plane is descending, right, now it depends on the calculation used, right? But it depends on the altitude of the plane. But if a plane is at 40,000 feet and it's coming into an airport that's 2,000 feet above sea level, right, the straightaway level, right, it needs to descend to a point where it's 1,000 feet above that airport. So that means if the point is at 40,000, has the plane at 40,000 feet, the calculation for descent will be for 37,000 feet because they must subtract the elevation of the airport and 1,000 foot that they need to come in above the airport, and that 1,000 foot will be used for landing, right? How do you do that? Which is we're using a right angle triangle. How do you do that with a horizontal baseline, right, over a sphere?
You don't.
So you can't. This can't be like takeoff and descent and landing. All these things are all part, and they're all part of like what's shown in the data. They're doing that. The problem is what they're trying to claim fails the minute that the pilot from 160 miles away, or sometimes 200 miles away, right, or 200 statute miles away, starts descending, right? So the descending is the hypotenuse of a right-angle triangle.
What would be called out to do that, right? So you're in your plane, you're at 20,000 feet, and you're approaching an airport, and you ask your co-pilot, can you get in touch with ground control and request for permission to what?
Land, of course.
No. Descend to flight level.
Pre-landing.
No. Just hear me out.
You're kind of
cutting me off. You are requesting permission to descend in Brian's description to flight level 1,000 feet.
Yes, but the calculation itself, right, will have a horizontal baseline that will be congruent with the altitude of the plane, right, and how much altitude they need to descend, right, for. And that can be 200 nautical, 200 statute miles. Now that means for 200 statute miles, the earth has to be flat. There's no way around it for that to work. There's no way for them to work this. It's impossible to work when you use the calculations. There are 4 main ones I'm aware of that are used within aviation. You cannot do that if the Earth's a globe. Right? There is no way around it. Now, that is when you're descending. So are they trying to say that you're flying the course, over a curved surface until you're 150 miles away from the airport, then the Earth is flat? Because that's basically, right, if you think about it, that's
exactly what I said. I said
argue.
that. Yeah, I said that for the landing, because you'd be proud of me, because I stood my ground. I blew them all away, and including AI, because he was saying I was confused. I said, no, I'm not confused. Not at all. I've been doing this for a long time.
AI is confused.
Let me summarise both of you. Hold on, Neil and AI and Brian and Jin. Yes. In other words, if you're going to describe the pitch of the plane with respect to horizontal for ascent and descent and level flight, you axiomatically require what is seen in the measured data. So when they say you're misinterpreting it, well, no, because there's an ascent that shows the gyro twisting in its cage, and then it's showing the measurement in the black box data. And then when you reach flight level, it remains pitch up with respect to horizontal, given you from the gyro, and then you descend with respect to the horizontal back down to the sea level that you've measured in your altimeter while in level flight. Now, that's what's shown in the measurements. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes, but what they've got to tell you already summarised, Jin. You're misinterpreting it. No, there's no interpretation. It's measurement data. It's raw data. It shows what it shows.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know what they're expecting? They're expecting to see, if you're flying over a globe, that the pitch angle changing exponentially, and you should see a curve.
Oh, what, like Wolfie said? What, like Wolfie lied about to his audience 8 years ago, saying that the plane does pitch down around the globe, and he showed a little model of an aeroplane doing it. Yeah, they just lie.
Yeah. Jin.
Can I just say something, Brian, after you?
Yeah, just 1 second.
Brian, then one deck. Go ahead, Brian.
Before it's lost. Yeah. Jin, don't confuse landing with descent, because descent happens and then landing happens.
I never do.
Hold on, Jin. Hold on.
Hang on, guys. If you say the term landing, you're not describing the whole descent process. You're just describing the landing process. That's at the end of the descent process. What I would suggest to you is research what's known as top of descent and the calculations used. You can go to my videos, as I show them there. If you go, only in some of the recent videos, I have stuff in there. I even have a challenge to the ballers for descent, a descent challenge for them and their power. Right? None of them will come near. But when check that out, and they won't be able to come near you. Right? Not that they can anyway. But as far as the data goes, you're not interpreting the data. It is already interpreted for you. It's not that you're looking at it and you're deciding, I think it's this or that. It is what it is.
Exactly.
Right.
Raw data.
Yeah, it's not an argument.
Exactly. They want to say, look, NTSB say that the gyros self-account for the curve. No, because then you wouldn't be able to see ascent and descent with respect to flight levels. You wouldn't be able to see takeoff and landing, although Brian's just decried it in terms of descent and ascent. And he's absolutely correct. There is no interpretation. It's raw data. They're just the measurements. Go ahead, Wanda.
Yeah. That's what I said. I told him straight that what I'm looking at is the characteristics of that flight. That's what I'm looking at here. What the plane actually did. That's what that data is telling me. Nothing else.
What my qualm is, not a qualm. I'm listening to all this. Everyone's sort of jumping in on each other and getting excited. What I'm trying to say is, I understand what the ballers say. At the moment, we've said a supposed flat earther is saying that we're interpreting it wrong. Has that flat earther, Jin, explained the correct interpretation according to him?
That's right. That was me, yeah. No, he's asking you. Let me just repeat your question. Hold on, one deck. He's saying, did AI tell you what the correct interpretation according to him is?
No, he didn't. He said that the actual data. If I'm saying if it was on a globe, what would it look like, Jin? I said I would personally expect to see a curved data line. That's what I would expect to see.
I can
on the graph.
answer you, AI, as you're asking Jin. If you want to know what you'd expect it to look like on a globe, go back 8 years and look at Wolfie6020 describing the plane flying around the globe. That's what you'd expect to see. We don't. There's no interpretation about it. It's raw data measurements. But Wolfie6020 lied through his back teeth for 8 straight years and poured scorn and ridicule on us to cover his lies.
AI Overlord has had an issue with Brian for years, and Brian hit it right in the head. He does not have an issue with it. He just has an issue with Brian. But in the same sentence, he'll say he was talking about it years ago. So there's a lot of pride going on here. The bottom line is there is no interpretation of it. It is what it is.
Well, you'd expect
I have to correct something that was said there.
You wouldn't expect to see a horizontal line, would you?
No.
No, see, this is the point. This is exactly glad you said that, because that leads exactly into the correction I want to make. AI Overlord, right? What was said that, what was it? How would it be explained on a globe or something like that? He asked you.
What would it look like? Yeah, what would it look like on the graph data? What would the data look like?
It wouldn't exist. He was asking me. No, it wouldn't. Yeah, the answer is it wouldn't exist. Planes can't do that. Planes don't fly curves, they fly straight lines, no matter what. It wouldn't exist if we lived on a globe. No, we wouldn't travel via planes. We'd travel some other way. If the Earth was a globe, the planes wouldn't exist. None of this would exist. So you can't. Him asking you that is asking you to come up with some crazy hypothetical nonsense, right? That wouldn't be able to exist in reality.
But we do have pitch data, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Because we don't live on a globe.
Exactly, Brian.
Yeah. We don't live on a globe. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. We don't live on a globe, which is what I said. I'm very quick at saying that. I let them know that. We don't live on a globe.
My question then is,
everyone
just stop talking over each other. The question becomes, why is AI Overlord, an alleged flat earther, asking you, a fellow flat earther, to describe to him why flat earth proof would look differently on a globe? Isn't that slightly suspicious?
Exactly.
That was my point about him, Nathan. That was my point about him.
My suspicions were answered when he said that he was trying to debunk Brian's. He was trying to debunk that, wasn't it? That's what he was trying to do, trying to debunk Brian's logic data. That's what he was saying. That's what he said.
No debunking.
It's not my data. It's NTSB. It's not like something that belongs to me or a claim I'm making. There is no claim. The data is what it is. You know what I mean? What it is that like anyone who's claiming to be a flat earther and is attacking that, you have to raise an eyebrow about.
Not only that, he lined up with Ballers, Jin said. He was on the show with Ballers attacking the pitch data. Attacking reality? Really? Okay.
Don't forget, you're not allowed to use horizontal.
Because the Ballers were there trying to defend it. Okay, and together with the Ballers, they were saying that I was wrong. Sorry to talk over there. My mistake. Sorry, go ahead. Apologise.
Okay, one deck.
I was just reiterating, as we've said before, you're also not allowed, as far as AI is concerned, Overlord, to use any of the 30 words when you're stopping a glober using any of the 30 words when they're trying to explain how Earth curve is measured using horizontal, plumb, level, perpendicular, sea level, theodolite, mariner's sextant. If you stop them in the tracks using any of these terminologies, you might find yourself being banned from the server.
I went in there for a couple of minutes yesterday. Nathan, you would have vomited at the stuff that I was hearing from AI. Finally, I came in, I said, there's no debating a measurement. What the hell are you talking about? A measurement is a measurement, and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jin, when you're dealing with AI Overlord, you're dealing with someone who's a potential agent. I've said this a long time ago about him. And he's only proven me correct. You can't trust that guy whatsoever. He's constantly on the manipulation. He's constantly on at manipulation. Don't trust him.
That's correct. I'll tell you what he said exactly. Yo, Brian's pitch data. Like it's Brian's pitch data. I had that argument 2 years ago. So he's contradicting himself because of his hatred for Brian.
Yeah, he never mentioned it ever, and suddenly he had the argument years beforehand. Even though I was mentioning it years beforehand, no one heard him mention it ever. And even Wolfie 6020 would attest to that. There was not a word about pitch data, from AI Overlord or anyone like that.
Yeah. You're right about what you say. You can't trust him. He's a little bit. There's a few question marks on his integrity, I'll have to say.
A few. Listen, yesterday when I heard
it, I stood my ground as I usually do. I was like a bollard. So they were just wrecking themselves on me. That's all they're doing. I wasn't moving at all. That's a fact. You can go and watch the video on the recording of it. You'll hear what I said. Because I was under the impression that data shows me exactly what the aeroplane's doing, the characteristics, and you can see it clearly. You can see clearly what the plane did. It shows me that. Not misinterpreting it at all.
You're interpreting it wrong, really, really. That shit heats me, man.
Jim, that horizontal line was obviously curved.
I love it. Because I said to them, what you just said there, I said, a curved line and a straight line are two different things. They're not the same. So you can't say a curved line is level. You can't follow a curved trajectory and say you're flying level. Stupid asses.
Jen, if you would have went in there and you would have... Sorry, go ahead. Whoever, go ahead.
Go on.
No, I'm just going to say, I'm going to be quick. If you would have went in there and you would have started talking about, what do you call that? What they use, the laser, they would have full on welcomed you to speak about the laser test. But because you went in there speaking about pitch data, it's directly connected to flat earth debate, Brian. They are going to resist, and they will even line up with Globers to resist it.
Well, the pitch data.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that. Didn't like that at all. That was a very horrible feeling when you got AI, aligning with the Globers, and stating that I am misinterpreting the flight data incorrectly. And I said, no, I'm not. No, we don't live on a globe, right? So that data shows me we're living on a horizontal flat earth, and that's a linear straight flight, except for when it takes off and lands. And the landing procedure versus the takeoff procedure has to be different, because when the plane is climbing up for altitude, you notice the steep angle there. Now, when it's coming to land, it can't very well do the same steep angle to land, because the passengers would be very uncomfortable in their seats. Their seatbelts would be grabbing their stomach. Everybody would be leaning forward. So it has to be a gentle down approach when they're approaching this airport from a few hundred miles out. That's what I said.
You're actually, as much as you're correct, you're over-egging the pudding, Jin. You don't need to do what you've done. It is what is on the data. You don't need to say, well, if the flight level at 20,000 feet was above a sphere, then it'd be a longer distance. It'd be a greater... You don't need to do anything. It is what... Brian said this already 5 times. It is what it is. You don't have to like it. Now, you can go to the filing cabinets and say, nah, the NTSB suggests that we're auto-correcting these gyros. No, when they do, you see it in the pitch data.
Yeah. It's just that I feel that you have to kind of, you know what it is? I'm trapped because I have to give a graphic kind of like explanation, because these guys are acting like they don't understand the data. So what do? You've got to try and you have to be the plane and explain how the plane flies. That's what happens. What can you do?
Jim, I have two things. One, first, the question: how would you have pitch on a sphere? You don't have any horizontal plane of reference. You can't. You don't have anything. You don't have it. There's no way to have pitch on a sphere. So
no, because it's spherical, isn't it? Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
No, that's a great way to end it.
The reference that you're using for pitch, which is horizontal, that has to be parallel. That has to translate to the Earth's surface, right? Has to translate to mean sea level. So that's why it works. You can't have a series of changing straight lines and pitch above them. That doesn't work. You don't have pitch. It doesn't exist at that point.
So what do you have?
The other thing...
So what do you have in the pitch data? Well, you've got altitude for flight level, and you've got surface level describing the altitude from it. These are in the measurements. So what are you going to interpret? Oh, well, surface level's curved. No, because then you'd see things deviating. But again, I'm over-egging the pudding. I don't need to say any of this. It is what it is. They don't have to like it.
Have to. You're compelled. When you're being shot at from several angles, you have to then... And remember, this is going out live to a live stream and so on. So I'm always considering the listeners. So then I do feel that I have to explain it, so at least the listeners know my position and what this plane actually does when what we're learning from the data, because they probably can't see what we're talking about.
Oh, but they're listening.
So that's why I do that.
The onus on them. But then you put the onus on them. So you want to deny these measurements. They use these to study death when people crash planes. You're denying these measurements. And that's how I phrase it. And what kind of reaction do I get? Well, I get fugly Dave McKeegan, who can't cope with his own tripod, suggesting that the filing cabinet says, I don't care. The data's what it is when you're studying life and death. Crashes.
I like
exactly. This is when it comes to compensation.
My God, everybody's talking to each other because Gin's here.
Sorry.
No, but I like what Brian said, because it ends right there. You can't have any pitch on a globe. So what are we arguing about here? We do have pitch data, though.
Gin, but I have to go there and grab a shower and stuff. But before I go, the reason you're being attacked on that is because you're making the server irrelevant, technically, because what you're doing is ending the argument. There's no more gray area when you bring something like the flight data. There's no more gray area. You show what it is, that's it. And because of that they don't want that. They don't want that over there. They want to keep this argument going for absolutely no good reason. But you're trying to end it. And the people that are supposed to be on your side are against you because they don't want that to end. They want to keep it going. You know what I mean? You're going, it's either black or it's white. They're going, well, it could be a bit grey. No, it can't. It can either be one or the other. And the data tells us which one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's been the game the whole time. The game has been creating the impression that there's a debate. There isn't one. Earth's measured flat. There is no debate about it. Well, what if we go and have a look at this document where they say that it isn't? But the measurements show that it is by way of measurement. Yeah, but what if you're interpreting the measurements wrong? Not, they're just measurements. In this case, life and death measurements. Yeah, but according to this filing cabinet, you're like, okay, so you're creating a grey area, like Brian says, because you don't like the measurements that are flat. That's basically the situation.
Yeah. You're creating a grey area.
That's exactly debating measurements. What the hell's going on here? A measurement is a measurement.
Anyway, okay, the Gin CBR1 vocal blast, and I was like a bollard. I ain't moving from this position. Sorry. I haven't got this far to be told I'm misinterpreting the graph. You're out of your mind.
Yeah, it is what it is. You know. Surface level's there, height above it's there, it's parallel. When they call it out from air traffic control, they're calling out what flight level you go to. They're telling you what flight level to descend to. They're levels. They're measured off the ground level.
And then they try to make out, right, that the plane's not flying level anyway because it's nosed up. He said 2 degrees. This would be the globe. I said, no, actually it's 3 degrees. It's an industry standard. And when you hear the pilots, they say they fly a leveled flight. And the reason for the nose up is so that the airflow flows across the aeroplane to maintain lift smoothly for the passengers. Precisely. If the pilot was to fly at 0 degrees level now, then it'd be buffeting. The pilot would have a hard time trying to keep it there. So you put it at 3 degrees up, the wings are level anyway, and you've got smooth airflow, everybody's happy. That's all it is. So don't be silly, it's still a leveled flight.
That was Brian's baby before this all came to a head with the pitch data. Brian's specific argument was about the lift effect.
That's right.
Yes, that's right. I know. That's why I gave it to him straight in the head.
Sorry, Jen.
That 3 degrees is an industry standard. Sorry, Brian.
You can understand having these stupid
conversations and arguments with anti-flat earthers and globers. But when you're talking to supposedly fellow flat earthers, people who know the earth is measured flat, and they're going against this proof and evidence, that's worrying.
That's the key word you said, supposedly.
Disconcerting, isn't it? And worrying, yeah. I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Word, supposed flat earthers. I don't trust any of them. I don't think they are any. I don't know anybody is anymore. As far as I'm concerned.
And then the funny thing is,
that guy's an agent.
Yeah, and the funny thing was, right, shortly after that, I gave them a very rare treat of showing them my kids, one picture of my kids. Then I showed them about one or two other pictures of me climbing up on a mountain bike, mountain bike trekking in the snow, okay? And a few other pictures, and we're talking about it. AI comes in, moans about it's a flat earth server. Okay. And suddenly I disappeared from the server and ended up somewhere where, what happened? It was like I was kicked out, right? And I get back in, and my pictures, I was going to delete them anyway, were deleted already. Because I don't leave them up on the Discord. I always take them down. It's just to show them, parts of my life. They've heard me a lot. No one knows what I'm really like, but here's some photographs, my family, blah, blah, blah. Because we had a quiet moment, and we talked about family and that. And the AI comes in, and then you know what? When I came back in, he's talking about profanity subjects. So I just left. I went, I'm out of here. I don't listen to this shit. You prefer to listen to this than family values. You're talking profanity, are you? I just left.
Yeah, he's a very
very
odd.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Neil.
Sorry, Neil, go ahead.
I didn't say anything. He's a vulgar guy. We know that.
Well, back to that data. If you've got the data that we can look at, showing you the pitch and the altitude, the actual data that we've got, and just poke that on, push it across the table under AI's nose, and
I did.
You don't really have to say, there's the data.
We didn't hear the end of what you said, Rondek. Please, Jin, just refrain from cutting people off. It means we can't hear them. We can only have one line open at once. So if you agree with him in the middle of his statement, we can't hear him. Try one more time, Rondek.
Yeah, I was saying just push the document under his nose, let him have a look at it, and then if he's got any qualms, ask him to explain how that supposedly has got nothing to do with flying over a flat, level plane. You point out where telling us it's not happening.
Yes.
I'm done.
Yeah, cheers for that. Yeah, you broke up a little bit for me, and I apologize for cutting you off there accidentally. But yeah, I did that anyway. I put the data up his nose, really, and I explained what I saw, and that was it for me.
But we're talking about measurements, and we're talking about arguing with fellow flat earthers about said measurements, and how we as flat earthers are just looking at the measurements, and suddenly we have to reinterpret them? No, we don't. But it's very shilly that we should be told to by fellow flat earthers. Very shilly indeed.
Well, my question is, would they be resisting it, let's say, if it came from Earth Awakenings or somewhere else? It's because it's coming from here and certain people here. We're all alone.
That doesn't change the data. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. The data is the data. I don't know what you're saying, Neil, but yeah, it's data. It's not our data. It's not the Land of Misfit Toys 1 data. It's the data from the aeroplane, which shows clearly that the plane is flying over a horizontal plane.
So they were fighting against NTSB. So they weren't even fighting against you, Jin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the and I did state that as well. And it's not actually my data. This is the data from the box. You're arguing with the black box, which is actually an orange box, by the way, residing at the tail end of the plane, yeah? Because the tail end of the plane seems to survive crashes more so than the rest of the main parts. So you're arguing with them. You're not arguing with me as such, And I've noticed as well that time to time, they do try to create divide between you and them, this server in particular and them. But I'm in the middle. I said, look, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not here to create division. I go to that server. I love the people in there. I'll always be going in there. And I've been in this one a long time. So if anybody doesn't want me to be in the server, let me hear it now. Okay? Because I'm here. I should be a mod, by the way. The length of time I've spent here, I should be a mod, by the way. So bear that in mind.
Are you talking about
I might be
here or
seeking
there?
mod status. No, in the Flat Earth 24/7.
Oh, good luck with that.
Yeah. I don't really want it, you know what I mean? But I let them know that I put in enough that I could be a mod by that. And I'm 63 and I'm very articulate. I'm not stupid, yeah? So bear that in mind, you know what I mean? Because I'm a realist. If I don't like somebody, I'll tell you straight away right where you sit. I'm not hiding. You can see my face. That shows you that I'm a man who's serious. Carry pride, integrity. You will know me. And that's what I'm about. I'm not about pretending here. So you don't like somebody, you go and tell them you don't like them. Bloody arsehole. So that's what annoys me, you see, that they try to create division. Bloody idiots.
Well, you went there with pitch data, very excited with this flat Earth proof, right? And you got shot down.
Yeah. Please bear in mind, Neil, I've been shoving that up their nose from last year when it came out. When you guys did that, I was there as well. When that video, from that day, I've been hammering the Earth Awakenings, medicinal mass media, Gem Panda, 24/7. And I said to them, I don't want to hear a single flat earther lose a battle over flights over the Earth. Don't want to, this data has been painstakingly put together. Start using it. And I bombard them for months, right up until October last year. And then I was kicked off of Discord. I returned in January this year, and I carried on with the same. So no, I value this particular Bull-Targe flatline, value it big time. So yeah, I stood for it right up there, put my life right on the line. Bang. That's me.
But the summary is, it doesn't matter if they like it, they don't have to like it. And it makes no difference if they say you're in requirement of reinterpretation of this data. The data will not change because Earth Awakenings feel that it's being misinterpreted by you. It is what it is, and nothing's going to change regardless of how they feel that there's a debate to have about raw, flat Earth measurements. There isn't.
Yeah. So since that failed, right, I didn't move and I wasn't conceding in any way, shape or form, they went on to talk about 24 hours sun and crap like that. And I just said the sun doesn't prove the shape of the Earth. Sorry. I'm not having any of that either.
No, I don't know about that either. I mean, what they want to suggest is that the argument about whether or not the sun remains above the horizontal for a 24-hour period is what you're saying, the sun won't prove whether or not Earth is flat, and I'd agree with you. But for the fact that Dave McKeegan, as an example, as we're talking about him, measured Earth flat for 24 hours in Antarctica, he couldn't quite get his tripod to work, or he would have done. But he is still measuring Earth flat with an elevation angle off surface level to the sun for however limited a period he could figure out to get a tripod working. Now, they want to make that argument about something that it isn't. They want to make that argument about the sun being in Antarctica above the plane for a 24-hour period and why that would be. Well, who cares? The measurements of that sun are flat. That's how they measure it. Earth's measured flat. We checked. They checked. Everyone checked. That's how it's measured.
That's it. So that was me. I'm glad to find you guys in here. I thought, good timing. Let me get this question out quickly because I defended it to the hilts. Okay. Could we be wrong? I was thinking. So let me just check let me check with the guys here, and we're not wrong. Brilliant. That's it.
Well done.
Not that we're not wrong. It's the pitch data is correct.
Bloody hellfire. Go ahead, one deck.
I was just saying, well done, Jin. And me and Jin have been in that server many a time, haven't we, mate? Battling it out with some of the server members and the Globers. So we've stood toe to toe some days and nights, haven't we, mate? And so
we have.
Well done, anyway.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. Nice one. Yeah.
No amount of alleged debate will change that data. Earth is measured flat. And in the pre-show, Brian was pointing out that this suggestion of debate is part of the game. It doesn't matter if you accept it. It doesn't matter if you suddenly turn around and go, oh, I understand now that we're measuring Earth flat as per these measurements of Earth being flat. It doesn't matter if you understand it. It doesn't matter if you like it. It doesn't matter if you suggest it should be reinterpreted. It is measured flat.
Right. Now, yesterday again, or was it the day before yesterday, in the 24/7, a couple of characters were saying that you can't use aeroplanes as a measuring tool. Now, I say I do. I use an aeroplane as a measuring tool because it's distance over time, drop over distance. Where's the curvature over a period of time?
Let me get it straight.
So you can use an aeroplane.
They're saying...
And I do.
Hold on, let me just get it straight, Jin. So, something that fundamentally requires accurate measurements to not kill people, you can't use as a flat earther? I see. So it's only the case that the pilots avoiding causing death can measure Earth flat? Yeah, that's fine by me. Yeah, the pilots can use the flat Earth measurements to not kill people. Yeah, but you can't. To prove it's flat. It just is flat, Jin. Again, it's back to the same thing I said 10 seconds ago. It doesn't matter if they like it. We are measuring. Otherwise, how do we fly? Yeah, we need accurate measurements when we fly, otherwise we end up killing people regularly on every single flight. But for the fact that we have accurate measurements, we don't kill people. When we do, what do we look at when we investigate why people died on an aircraft? We look at the... Oh, no, we can't use them. We wouldn't want to use measurements. That would be unfair to the globe. No, they just go to the measurements, don't they, Jin?
Yeah, you've got to go to the measurements. That's where they're at. You've got to measure, and it's measured flat.
Yeah.
That's silly. That's what I mean. How can you not? I've been saying that I use an aeroplane to measure the Earth for 10 years, right? And it was only 2 days ago that someone was trying to push back and say, they wasn't actually talking to me directly, okay? But I was there listening, and I heard them say, you can't use aeroplanes to measure the Earth as a measuring tool. I thought, no, that's wrong. Of course you can, and I do, and I will. Yeah, so they're trying to shoot down my arguments.
You can't use planes for measuring Earth. I mean, when they smash into the Earth, how dare you suggest that measurements should be used? What a bunch of crap!
I mean, I think they prefer to use sticks and shadows using the surface of the Earth for elevation angles. That's what they prefer to do. Especially the Earth.
Yeah, but when now that you mentioned that.
Well, I'm just going to reiterate what Wandek's saying before you do, Jin, which is to say, I mean, if you don't want to use the plane that you travelled to Antarctica in when travelling south, that's a horizontal direction, you can measure Earth flat for a 24-hour period with an elevation angle above the surface level, like on screen now. This is an elevation angle measurement, like Fugly Dave McKeegan made for 24 hours when he travelled south, that's a flat Earth direction, for a certain amount of miles, that's horizontal linear distance measurement, and when he got there, I mean, he couldn't quite cope with setting up his own bleeding tripod, but the limitations of his fugly idiocy led him to still measure Earth flat for a limited amount of time. And how did he do it? Well, he did it with a flat Earth elevation angle measurement to the sun off surface level, like this on screen. Or this. These aren't my diagrams, by the way. This is just how Earth is measured flat by everyone, including but not limited to Dave McKeegan and Simon Dan, Al Baruni, anybody else who uses an elevation angle.
Exactly. So wait a second. If you're flying in a plane to go to California and you're leveling off at 30,000 feet for a few hours, I can't use that as a measurement? What's going on here?
It's only the pilots that are allowed to use flat Earth measurements to remain in straight and level flight, Neil.
Yes, it was an outrageous statement. I thought, no, I'm going to carry on the way I operate. And as an engineer, it was a perfect example of you thinking out of the box. Because an aeroplane is a measuring tool, as far as I'm concerned, especially when you're talking about trying to be living on a globe.
It's covered in them.
The ideal tool, in fact.
It is a whole raft of measuring tools available to the pilot in the cockpit, and some of them have redundancy.
Yeah. So for the most part, when I'm in the 24/7, 95% of the time, I'm having a great time with it. We're going well. It's the little 5% we get these little needly things that pop up. Can't use an aeroplane for measuring. The telemetry data is all wrong. That kind of thing creeps up now and again. Yeah, and I don't like that when that happens as such, but I stand my ground. That's the thing. I'm not conceding anywhere. Never will.
Yeah, and you don't need to. Not in this regard.
Yeah.
The best they've got
That's
to
right.
tell you is that you're misinterpreting it or that you can't use it. Why is that? Because it's proving Earth's flat. Yeah, it is. That's how it's being measured. I mean, if they couldn't, they wouldn't be able to investigate hitting the ground when not in level flight.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm always having to draw their attention
used.
to it. Whenever the discussion applies and I drop that telemetry data, I'm always having to, whoever's debating it on the flat earther side, I say, look, can you draw their attention to the telemetry data that I dropped in? Because that just irons it out. It levels it out completely. So please draw their attention to it and use it. Yeah, I do that. I do that. Make sure they use it because it is valuable data. You know, and they're trying to dismiss it. I'm not going to allow them to do that. That's for sure. Yeah, because I'm not beyond shouting down a flat earther into his corner. So you want to get silly with me, you won't last. You know,
So
I'll end
now
up
go
getting
back
banned.
there,
No doubt.
Jim, now go back and say you came to us, you checked, and everything is copacetic.
He didn't need that.
Yeah.
Double checking isn't checking, right? He didn't check with us. He knew. And he stood his ground. He's just going, this is what happened. He's telling us what happened. He's not double checking. He's not checking. He knew. Didn't you, Jin?
No, you just told us how he came here to check.
No, he didn't. He didn't need,
I just
need to check with us. He's just giving me material.
That we are not wrong in what we're saying. I did want to do that, yes. And you've confirmed it immediately. You confirmed it in the first 60 seconds. So there you are.
Yeah, you're helping me produce a show that's interesting for people to listen to reiterate these points that are indisputable.
Yeah. Empirical evidence.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Can't really,
exactly. They're saying you can't use empirical evidence, which is measurements in this instance. They're saying you can't. Why? Well, because they're flat. That's why. There's only one reason.
That's right. They're flat, and they're not subject to anyone's disapproval at the end of the day. Because it is what it is. You take it to a court of law, which you mentioned earlier. This is what decides whether or not those who may have died or who may have been injured in an aircraft crash determines whether they get the compensation or not.
Exactly.
This is what they use. This data is valuable.
Yeah.
Key. Yeah.
Exactly. And the terminology itself is self-explanatory when you're talking about remaining in level flight, ascending to certain flight levels, your height off sea level, elevation. All of these axiomatic principles are what the plane is measuring so that they don't kill people. It is that simple.
Yeah.
You can't use that as a measurement. Nathan.
Why?
I don't need to. The pilots do so that they don't kill people when they fly over the flat Earth that they're measuring. But I don't need to use them. No, you're right. I'm not a pilot. I mean, I could be someone like Wolfie and just lie through my back teeth. Didn't you, Wolfie, you complete shyster with your little toy aeroplane? No, it'd be showing that in the pitch data, wouldn't you, you lying little shit? But you lied about it for 8 straight years, didn't you, Wolfie? Because you needed to believe you're on a ball. You had to lie about it. Yeah, well, we've got the measurements. Earth's flat. We checked.
No, the troubling thing is Jim's not coming here saying he was at Gem Pandas and, was facing hostile people when he brought up pitch data. This happened on a 24/7 Flat Earth debate show. Very troubling.
Well, they're going to control the opposition, Neil. If you're going to have the game rigged in such a way that the perception of there being a debate is the only way to keep this momentum of a ball alive, then you need people on the inside to pretend to be flat earthers to keep the argument going when there isn't an argument. So when you say, well, they want, because Brian's undermining them, to keep the debate alive because it kills the server. No, it's not the server it kills the globe paradigm when you end the argument. When you point out, like on screen now, you require surface level be measured. You require eye level be axiomatically parallel with it. You require zeniths and zenith distances to be horizontal. All of these principles of axiomatic flat Earth measurement hold true when we measure Earth. It is that simple, and there's no exception to it. Even if you want to believe you're on a ball, you still have to require surface level. Axiomatically, eye level must be parallel with it. None of these change when you become a baller. That's the problem. So what do you have to do? Create the impression that there's a debate when there isn't one. There's no debate. Earth's measured flat. There's no exceptions.
I'm glad you clarified that, because it didn't make any sense why they want to keep the argument going, because it would end the show. It doesn't end the show. It just gives us an upper hand. Finally, right? We have the upper hand, and we could talk about this forever.
Well, you can't even say.
Said makes sense to have to control the opposition.
You can't even say we won, because there wasn't a win or lose to be had. Earth was just measured flat the whole time. So again, to say, oh well, we win as flat earthers. No. Everyone was always measuring Earth flat, and nothing changes. When people say, well, how different will life be? When I appreciate if you are right, creating the impression that there's an argument, that Earth is flat. Answer: no, there wasn't any debate about it. Earth will still and always was being measured flat anyway, and still is after you find that out. Now, when you look into it a bit further, your bull belief was based on those flat Earth measurements. So does it make any difference? No, Earth was, is, and always will be measured flat regardless of you knowing that.
Yeah, but I think Neil is referring to the flat earthers on the public stage, where we are always being ridiculed and that, right? It gives us the upper hand, because we're now proving what we're saying is true by the evidence that we bring forward, which is proof. That's what Neil is referring to, I think.
No debunking the globe, having the upper hand with measurements. That's all.
I tell you what,
no wins here.
Go on, John.
It isn't.
Hold on.
It's nice. It's nice to be able to say that not only is your position the correct position, but your opponent can no longer put their position forward without submitting to your position first.
Yeah, they need to accept. Yeah. That's what I call the rock and the hard place. It is a derivation of John's original position. John was the originator of me developing the rock and the hard place argument. And John's position was, I will concede to all of your positions. That's the Glober position. You go, well, that sounds devastating for you as a flat earther. No. John understands fundamentally, I'm sorry to speak in the third person about you, John, that they need a flat earth more than we do. So every one of their positions will hang on a flat earth before they can assert it. So we can concede to all of their positions because they ultimately require a flat earth to have them.
Yeah.
Right.
They eventually concede to ours. Flat.
Yeah.
Mr. Cheswick says he sent me an email in the chat. So just one sec. Mr. Cheswick says, I've just sent you an email at AOL address. Just a little teaser of what's coming up for the Globers. Ha ha ha. I'll have a little look. Can't actually see anything from you, Mr. Cheswick, but it could just be my email taking a while to update. Anyway, anything else anybody wants to add before we round out the live show?
Yeah, I was just going to say, for the most part, though, the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord operates on the highest standards possible most of the time, and that's a good 99.99% of the time. Because when the Globers do come into that server, they are held to the highest standard, and they've got to prove their mustard. Okay, that's a fact. That's what I've experienced in all the years that I've been there. There's been one or two incidences, like I've mentioned, where miscommunication between certain characters, but outside of that, it's got the standard that you adhere to here is being met the same in the 24/7. So let's not get that mixed up in any way, shape, or form. They do operate under a very high standard themselves. Yeah, I just don't like the division.
I went there yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I just don't like the division. That I don't see why 24/7 cannot get on with FED. We're the same people at the end of the day.
We don't need to.
So
we don't need to get on with them. It makes no difference. Again, this is back to Brian's point in the beginning of this live show. It don't matter. What, you don't like us? It doesn't matter. Earth's still measured flat. Oh, we don't get on with the 24/7 Discord server. It doesn't matter. Earth's still measured flat.
Yeah, that's the main point there.
We don't need their approval. Is the point?
It's not everybody in the server. One or two characters have made their disapproval of the certain characters in this server. But like I've always said, I don't understand the reason for it. We're all flat earthers at the end of the day, and we need each other anyway. I'll always be advocating for that for as long as I live.
I understand what you're saying, Jim, because there are a couple of guys now, and yesterday immediately they were said, "What's up to me?" And I know the guys. There's people in there that are legit, but there's also people in there that are very shady.
Yeah, because there are some legit people. That's what I'm saying, and I've always had a good time of it anyway. That's me. Even when it gets a bit everywhere, I'm put under pressure for my position. But you know, I'm fighting like a gorilla and a lion mixed. Okay. I'm not very nice when it comes to that. Sorry.
I've tried to download. I tend to get. Hold on 1 second, John. Just for Mr. Cheswick's benefit, I'm trying to download what you've downloaded. I'm just struggling to do it. And if I did, I'd get it on my iPad. I don't tend to look at my emails on my computer that I'm streaming with. So at a pinch, I can't get it up for whatever reason because you've sent it me as a download. But I'm sure it'll come out on your channel and I will plug it. So if you subscribe to Mr. Cheswick, he's there in the chat floating on by as we speak. You can keep up to date with his CGI renderings of Simon Dan and most recently Dell I watched yesterday that was had me in pieces. Very funny indeed. But yeah, so check out Mr. Cheswick. He's, as I say, floating his way by in the chat. Just right click on his icon and it'll take you to his channel. Yeah, John.
I was just going to say there's really no need to even fight for your position. They have to take it too. It is the default because of measurement. You don't have to argue with them ever.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. But I like to defend my position. I like to defend my position always. The listeners know.
I can actually play it just audio-wise. Just 1 second.
Oh, where's the guns, Nathan? In this Antarctic abyss.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a CGI McToon saying that. I just can't play it from my iPad on the computer. But yes, very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Cheswick. Any more for any more? No? Okay, well, with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow.
About the pitch data, how we're wrong and we're misinterpreting what the pitch data is actually saying. Yeah. Very chilly.
Well, I'll tell you another fantastic point from the Bulltards Flatline. Okay, I love it. Episode 128. The fact that an aeroplane taking a curved trajectory is actually a dangerous maneuver, because that was also alluded to in that documentary, right? So I then started to say to the Globers, okay, that when you factor in the fact that a curved trajectory is a dangerous maneuver, so it means that if I'm traveling from London Heathrow to Narita, Japan, that's a 9.5-hour flight of a curved trajectory of 3,740.47 miles of curvature there for 9.5 hours. That would put enormous torsional stresses on the fuselage and the wings where it articulates with the fuselage, and then with the engine, where the engines articulate with the wings, enormous stresses would be subjected to those parts and the tail section for 9.5 hours. Now, that being the case, you should find the aircraft after it lands and the passengers disembark and all the luggage has been removed. The plane should come under scrutiny and checks in the hangar, because it's a dangerous maneuver, remember? An aeroplane flying horizontally is the safest position for the plane.
Not horizontally.
But as soon as you start to nose
Stop. They don't call it horizontally. What do they call it? Straight.
Well, level flight.
Not just level flight.
Level flight.
Jin, please. Straight
and level.
Oh my God! Third attempt. You're going to rub this every attempt.
I mean. Yeah, straight and level.
Jin, just hold your tongue.
Okay. Well, I've been saying
not horizontally, straight and fifth attempt. Sixth attempt. Straight and level flight is how it's described. Finally.
Yeah,
you still
okay,
in
yeah, which
Japan?
means
That might be the
horizontal, but
reason for
okay.
the delay.
Straight and leveled flight. Okay, straight and leveled flight is the safest position for that plane. And as soon as it moves off the straight and level of the horizontal linear straight line, nosing upwards or taking a curved trajectory, these two maneuvers are very dangerous for the airplane. Okay, so that's something we need to think about. If you're living on a globe and you're traveling from point A to point B, whatever the flight duration, especially on the long haul flights, the airplane should be subjected to some serious inspection in the hangar for an hour or two, checking everything. That never happens. I've never seen it happen.
Well, you'd see it in well, they'd want to investigate it because something's gone wrong. If you're not in straight and level flight, something's going wrong. And what would you need? Oh, you'd need some measurements to see what went wrong, wouldn't you? Like, I don't know, black box data?
Exactly. Yeah. So I've been
I would like
pushing that point as well.
Describe curvature with miles.
You can't. It's linear, horizontal.
Yeah, miles is not represented by an arc.
Correct.
So you're saying that if you're flying for, let's say, 150 miles, that can only be described as linear, right?
It is only described as linear in the measurements. That's the point.
Oh, dear.
It's getting worse for the globe, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why you got to create the idea that there's a discussion to be had, that there's an interpretation to do, that you just don't understand. How many times have you heard that, Jin?
Many. Yes, I could be a millionaire.
Yeah, but there isn't one. There is no debate. There is no discussion to have. Earth's measured flat. It always was.
Yeah.
It always will be. There's never any change to occur once you realise that you were duped into believing you were on a ball, with also the use of flat Earth measurements, ironically.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to destroy your point or nothing, Jen. Like the drop over distance is something that they should recognize. But at this point, I say, don't let them have distance. Don't let them have anything. They've got 95% of the world believing them. Don't give them anything.
Yeah, but as flat earthers, we tend to use the Earth's curvature calculator, for example. That's where we fall into that bracket, if you will. So that's where this distance is coming from. And again, when you're talking, hang on a second. Sorry,
for a second, Jin. Someone wants to respond to you. Go ahead, John.
The curvature calculator does not have Earth curving within the calculator.
Correct. It's got surface level. You know that, Jin?
Yeah, surface level. Yeah.
But they measure it. The surface level's measured for the horizontal linear distance to the target that they're going to claim is obscured below the surface level they just measured. Well, that ain't going to fly. And they need to measure their altitude off surface level. It's an altitude measurement off a flat Earth. So in all instances, Jin, they're going to need a flat Earth, even in Earth curve maths.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, there's no exceptions.
That's the reference, isn't it?
Even if you're a baller, you still have to measure Earth flat.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. It's there staring you at your face all the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
That drop over distance.
The drop over distance
From level to level.
If you're surveying, then that's rise over run, isn't it? But you still need the run to be a horizontal plane measurement. It's a horizontal distance to describe the drop with respect to it.
Exactly, yeah. True.
They want to claim level is deviating from level.
I love it when you say it.
No.
Yeah,
the level's deviating from the level. How'd you know? Well, we use level to measure how not level is.
No, I'm not going to give them distance anymore. I like that.
Yeah, they can't have distance. Distance is ours, Neil. Horizontal linear measurement. Planar. Look at the scale on a map.
Yeah, if you hold them to any standard, there is no way to have the discussion to come to the idea that there's a debate to be had if you hold them to the correct standards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what you do is you shut it down completely. There isn't one to be had, as you said.
Yep, you got it.
Which is correct.
Or, as we put it, don't use our stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
Within 30 seconds, they will be using our stuff because they have to.
Yep. And again, it comes back to John's
because-
phraseology. You guys need a flat Earth more than we do. Because to believe in a ball, you need to measure Earth flat.
I'll give you a flat Earth, Nathan.
That's Conspiracy Cats, now called Culture Cats. I actually left a comment in one of his videos, so I went to search, as I do, my own name to see who's making videos about me, and the search function to limit it by day disappeared. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So as I scroll down the endless reams of garbage from my opponents, I come across a Culture Cats video saying, I should debate Nathan live, from Culture Cats, formerly Conspiracy Cats. And then in the undertitle, it said, I debated Nathan Oakley on his own friend's channel, meaning Anthony Riley. You're like, okay. So without watching his video, I just paused it immediately and wrote a comment underneath that said, quote, I'll give you a flat earth for that, end quote, Culture Cats, formerly Conspiracy Cats, when measuring Earth flat for perspective. And then added, quote, without the container there can be no pressure, end quote, Conspiracy Cats, now Culture Cats, when debunking outer space.
Yeah, outer space is a oxymoron. Outer is with relation to the center point on a sphere. Space has to deal with length, width, and height, not curve.
Just a slight sidebar, not really, still on measurements, but I listened back to some of the second half of the live show that I missed because I had to have a shower and stuff. And I listened to Jin, and Jin said that he came in here to verify that he definitely was right. Now, I know he knows it's right, so the pitch data and whatever, but he came in here for verification. You see, I'm going to go into something else that he stated a few minutes later. The thing is, what the battle we're fighting is a gaslighting battle. And this is the thing. The people who are most assured of themselves are always the biggest problem for the opposition. Because when they tell me that black is white or white is black, and I go, no, black is black and white is white, I don't stand for it. But if they can get you out and somehow get you to start questioning what you know to be true, that's when they have you. And that's the gaslighting. Because the globe is the biggest gaslight in history. So if they can make you believe that horizontal can change in its own orientation back to itself, right, and somehow accept that, you've then stepped outside of reality and you're then being gaslit into believing something that isn't true, something that you know is not true. And that's what they do. So when they're trying to say to people, the pitch data or the flight data, you need to reinterpret it or blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I don't need to do anything. It is what it is. You just don't want to accept it. So you're trying to get me to question the reality of it and put doubt in my mind. Because that's what gaslighting is. You left that light on, right? That's what it is, isn't it? That's like, if you go back to the movie you talk about, Nathan, Gaslight, where that comes from, it's like the girl was being told she was leaving the lamps on when she wasn't, and made her believe that doubt herself when she knew better. And that's the difference. That's why they have a hassle with you, Nathan, and any of us who have strong wills, is because we won't allow ourselves to be gaslit. We won't allow that. We'll throw it. We'll laugh. Worse than we won't. We actually laugh at it most of the time, right? We don't end up in doubt. Now, Jin is not someone who suffers from doubt. That's why he's having such an uphill battle, because they all need him to doubt himself. And that's what it is. And when you have doubt in your mind, that's when they get you. Now, there was another thing that Jin said, right? He said that he heard a baller say that you can't use airplanes as a measuring tool, right? So when the plane is going from A to B at a certain speed, and at a certain speed over that time, you're saying that that can't be used as a measuring tool. Then we can throw out, let's just say, flights from Perth to Sydney, telling us how wide Australia is, or flights from Sydney to Santiago, right? They're BS, right? Explain this flat earth, or this flight path, or this flight route that, right, they really have no evidence for, right? It's like, so we can't use it as a measuring tool. We're supposed to we're expected to stick to local measurements, right? So let's not talk about the bigger earth, right? Let's talk about local stuff, right? And not the bigger earth. But we're supposed to accept this when they come to us and ask us to explain the Sydney to Santiago flight, because that involves a distance. That would be a measurement. Do you understand what I mean? A claim distance. And how do they do that on a flat earth? Blah, blah, blah. Right? That's them using that. So they want us to not use the thing that they're quite happy to use. These people have no scruples whatsoever. No scruples. Sorry, I had to say that, because when I heard Jin talking about these things, I was like, I saw red.
As in the fact that he's questioning it at all? I immediately took it away from that, and maybe slightly took away from your point in doing so after the fact. Obviously, your point after the fact, where I'm saying no, Jin knows this. He knows this. Well, no, he's, as you're putting it, been gaslit into questioning, second guessing. I think they call it. Is it called second guessing? Have I got that term right?
Yeah, second guessing yourself. Yeah.
You know something, and someone comes along and goes, no, what you're reading as a horizontal distance measurement, what you're reading as an altitude off surface level, when they say straight and level flight, you just don't understand. And you go, oh, maybe I don't understand straight and level flight, horizontal distance measurement, and altitude off surface level. Maybe I don't understand. Yeah, you do. You're just being gaslit. Because that's all they've got to do. They've got to create the impression that you don't understand, because that's all they've got that they can do. When it's as plain as day, it's as black and white as in the data, what it shows and what it measures. So if you can't win against that, you've got to make your opponent think that they've already lost, or that they haven't got the correct faculty of mind to scrutinise raw data. And that's what they did to Jin.
Yeah, so that was right.
Go on,
Go on, Neil.
No, I just got shot down when I said it. I said I heard Jin say, no, he didn't. He knows. Okay.
Well, it's because I don't want to accept that people can be gaslit, that this is the circumstance. But Brian's more realistic than I am. I'm more of an optimist. I want to think that, no, we've got the truth on our side because it is what it's measured. Therefore, there's no arguing with it. So when someone creates that idea of doubt, I want to shout that down and go, no, there is no doubt, because there is no doubt. So you've got to manufacture doubt. And that's Brian's point. The only way they get to perceive to be winning is to manufacture doubt.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what I was saying.
I'm sorry, Neil. Are you looking for an apology? I am sorry.
No. I was trying to say they came in. They tried to put doubt in Jin's mind. He came in here and checked with us. And it's all copacetic. Yeah. So they're trying to put doubt in his mind of what he's reading.
Because I didn't want to be wrong.
What's copacetic
in my position, of course.
I don't know that word.
And I didn't want you guys to be wrong.
What does that mean, Neil? What's copacetic? I don't think I know that word. What's that word? Copacetic?
Oh, how would I explain it? Everything is good, right? Everything is all right. Everything is lining up.
We're all in mutual agreement. Is that what copacetic means? We're all in mutual agreement?
No, man. It means it's all right. It's all cool. It's copacetic.
It doesn't matter if we're in agreement. We're dealing with factual data is the facts of the matter.
Yes.
Actually, it means in excellent order, Nathan.
In excellent
Everything's
order?
in excellent order.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't matter if we weren't. It wouldn't matter if we all had doubt in our minds that the ball was manufactured and put it there. Sorry, that wouldn't change reality. It is what it is, right? The thing is that they, right, what they want is flat earth believers. Because if all you hold is a belief, then that doubt can be manufactured very easily. But when you know they can't manufacture the doubts, when you understand they can't manufacture the doubt, all they can do is do their best to shut it down. Shut down what you're telling them to be true. And that's what Jen is doing with the data. And Jen is not saying this is true. He's showing this is the data. He doesn't have to say anything. Right? But they want to manufacture doubt as much as they can in anyone's mind, even someone like Jen, who's obviously Jen is probably one of the most strong-willed people I've met in this arena. And that's why Jen is a problem for him, because he doesn't allow them to get away with gaslighting him. Neither do you, Nathan. Neither does QE or Adam. I do my best not to either. And John, like, we don't. Like, try and gaslight chocolate. It just will not happen. Or Eli, it just won't happen. Flatsy won't allow herself to be gaslit. Neil won't allow himself to be gaslit. And that's the difference. If you allow yourself to be gaslit, if you're one of those people that allows yourself to be gaslit, that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah, everything's in excellent order, Brian.
Copacetic.
You're on fire today, Brian.
Brian's always on fire.
Yeah, Brian's always on point all the time. Yeah, remember, after this final experiment, I knew that there's going to be a breakdown of flat earthers and people are going to start to fall along the wayside. Okay? Now, I mean this for the rest of my life. I know the earth is flat now. So I've now just got to be aware of the so-called anti-flat earthers and globers. New characters are popping up. And then those who are shifting their positions as well. Keep an eye on here. I'm like a radar, but I'm holding on to my position. And that is, we do not live on a spinning ball flying through the universe. That is not happening. Earth is measured flat. You cannot have a naked ball system without a barrier to protect our air in a vacuum. Second law of thermodynamics violation. That's the foundation. That will never crack or break. So then it's just whatever they're building upon their false premise, and in a court of law, is stated as has to be seen and deemed null and void because you're building from a false premise. There you are. So I'm
I got to correct you on one thing, Jen.
Go on.
It was happening way before TFE.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it wasn't so fast, though. In recent months, it's just got ridiculous. It's just got ridiculous in recent months. Take Jaron, for example.
The globe. You're saying, Jim, that globe you're talking about, that's mathematical. It's a mathematical concept coming from calculations after the measurement. Yeah, it's all just math and calculation, that globe. A spinning globe flying through space. It's not a globe, it's mathematics. The measurements of Earth are flat. It tells you that in the Earth curve calculator. It's measured from surface level and eye level parallel to each other. That's how they measured Earth. Then mathematics comes in and calculations, and they turn it into a globe. It's just a concept. It's not reality.
Now, this is what you've just said. Go ahead. Sorry, what you just said, One Deck, falls right in line with characters that were coming to the 24/7 3 months ago. 3 months ago, we had characters coming in, and they were living by those maths, right? Everything they spoke about was mathematical. It was on their computers, modeling. So for that period of time, I said, "Can you stop the modeling now? Stop the modeling already. Can you now take this model and reproduce it in reality, please? In the real, get out the house, drop the computer down, go out there and prove that now. Because I don't live by models. So what you're doing is black and white. You've got the numbers, they make sense on your computer. But now can you lift it out of the computer and put it into nature and let's see it. Bring that to life." Yeah, and you know what? That's when give up because they don't seem to want to go out and measure the surface of the Earth. And everybody was asking, why don't you check?
Sorry, Brian. I was just going to big Brian up. That's what Brian. I'm just saying to you, Brian. That's what you say, isn't it, mate? With the, citations and definitions. They're all very well and good, but you've got to take it outside into reality and demonstrate and observe what is actually happening, what you're actually doing. Surveyors, pilots, navigators. They're using and treating the Earth as level and horizontal. Go, Brian.
No, sorry, one deck. I stepped on you at the end there. No, the citation or whatever or calculation means nothing if it doesn't adhere to reality. If you can't show and demonstrate this in reality, then it means nothing. If it's not supported by reality, then it's not supported. Like, there's no point in me, right? There's no point in me dropping something where I am now, then going 10 miles in any direction, right, and dropping something there, and then calculating based off of the distance that those two things are being pulled towards the center of the sphere, and then turn around and saying, "See, my calculation proved." It's like, no, you've pre-assumed the sphere, and then your calculations are based on that exact sphere of a sphere of that exact size, and then your calculations then fit your calculations. So your calculations fit your pre-assumption. What has any of that got to do with actually proving a point in reality? Nothing. They don't have anything. Everything they have is all a back calculation from reality. Stuff happens in reality, then they must back calculate. It's just like with the Haversine formula. As John has said many, many times, refracted curvature, John, not QE. But John has refracted curvature has said time after time after time. If it's a globe, then why do you need a calculation to convert it to a globe? Why do you need that? If it's a globe, you shouldn't need that calculation.
Indeed. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.